What if I told you the world's most powerful financial institutions are panicking? They are not selling stocks. They are not dumping bonds. Instead, they are quietly stockpiling one thing: gold. Over the last 3 years, central banks have bought gold at a pace not seen in over 50 years, nearly 3,000 tons of the precious metal. It is a treasure hunt happening behind closed doors, a massive, coordinated financial maneuver that speaks a single terrifying truth. The economy is sending out a silent alarm. But what exactly are they trying to hedge against? And does this secret gold rush prove our system is in fact broken? To understand the mystery, we have to look back at gold's fundamental nature. It is not just a shiny metal. Gold is a crisis barometer. For centuries, it has been the one asset that cannot be printed by a government or defaulted on by a debtor. It has no counterparty risk. When faith in paper money, in fiat currency, erodes, people rush to the one thing that has always held its value. This is why gold always shines brightest in the darkest economic hours. Think back to the great inflation of the 1970s. The price of gold shot up by over 2,300% in that decade. The reason? People were watching their dollars lose purchasing power every single month, and they needed a refuge. Then, there was the 2008 financial crisis. When the entire global banking system looked like it might collapse, gold prices doubled in the years that followed. It was an instinctive, market-wide flight to safety. Now, look at the present. Gold is not just rising, it is hitting all-time nominal highs across multiple currencies, not just the US dollar. We are seeing a coordinated global surge that has defied traditional expectations. Historically, a strengthening US dollar or rising interest rates would put a lid on gold's price because US bonds would offer a better, safe yield. But that relationship has broken. Today, we have high interest rates and a skyrocketing gold price. This anomaly is the first chilling clue in our investigation. The market is saying, yes, bonds pay interest, but we no longer trust the issuer of those bonds. The biggest clue of all, however, is not found in the hands of individual investors. It is found in the secretive vaults of the world's central banks. These are the financial institutions that manage the entire stability of nations. The US Federal Reserve, the People's Bank of China, the Reserve Bank of India. They are the most sophisticated, risk-averse players in the world, and they are buying gold at a pace that is frankly staggering. In 2022, central banks reported purchasing over 1,086 tons of gold, a record. In 2023, they bought another 1,037 tons. This is not a one-off trade. This is a structural pivot. But why the rush? On the surface, they offer 3 explanations. 1. Inflation. Gold is a traditional hedge against rising prices, protecting their reserve wealth. 2. Geopolitical uncertainty. In a fractured world of sanctions and trade wars, gold is an asset that cannot be frozen or seized by an opposing power. It is sovereign insurance. 3. Simple diversification away from the US dollar. These are all valid, fact-based reasons, but look closer. There is a 4th reason, a silent one, that is only whispered in the halls of global finance. It is the fear that what they are fleeing is not just a risk, but a core structural vulnerability in the system they themselves are supposed to protect. They are not just diversifying, they are preparing for something worse. For the first time since 1996, central banks now collectively hold more gold than they do US Treasury bonds. Read that number again. The traditional bedrock of global finance, American government debt, is being quietly ditched for a metal that paid no interest for thousands of years. And this move is a stark admission of distrust in the very financial architecture built after the Second World War. It is a signal that the 2 twin pillars of the modern global economy, the US dollar's supremacy and the unshakable faith in government debt, are both cracking at the same time. So what are the cracks the central bankers see that are causing this panic buying? It comes down to 2 major interconnected problems. The first is the debt paradox. Across the developed world, but most acutely in the United States, national debt is spiraling out of control. It has grown so large that the interest payments alone now consume a massive, growing share of government revenue. And this debt is being paid for in part by printing new money or issuing new bonds. But who buys the bonds when the debt load looks unsustainable? Foreign nations like China and Japan, who historically have been huge buyers, have been pulling back for over 10 years. This leaves the central bank itself, the Federal Reserve, to step in. This is where the fear comes from. If the only buyer left for the debt is the central bank, which prints the money to buy it, that is the literal definition of monetizing the debt. It devalues the dollar, which means the bonds they hold become a less reliable store of value. The central banks of other nations are watching this and they are terrified. They are realizing their US dollar reserves are not the safe, reliable anchor they once were. They are paper-backed by more paper. The second major problem is the politicization of finance. Recent years have shown that countries can and will use financial tools as weapons. Sanctions can freeze the assets of entire nations, locking them out of the global system. While arguably necessary in certain geopolitical moments, the precedent itself has been set. If a government can freeze my country's US dollar assets in a New York bank vault, those dollars are not truly mine. They are only an IOU that can be revoked. Gold, however, is physical. If I hold it in my own vault, in my own capital, no one can press a button to vaporize that value. It is the ultimate expression of financial sovereignty. The gold rush, therefore, is a desperate search for true financial independence from a system that has proven it can be weaponized. We are seeing a quiet, deliberate dismantling of the US dollar-led financial order, brick by physical gold brick, and the total volume of this hidden gold demand, what the World Gold Council calls unreported purchases, is adding to the mystery. It suggests that some nations are buying so aggressively and so strategically that they do not want the public or their rivals to know the true extent of their financial shift. It is an unprecedented situation that suggests a deeper, more systemic problem than a simple economic slowdown. This brings us to the ultimate reveal. What is the silent alarm truly warning us about? The gold is skyrocketing not because a new recession is coming, but because the global financial system is quietly anticipating a return to a pre-20th century reality. The ultimate mystery revealed by the secret gold rush is this: the world's most powerful financial minds no longer have full faith in each other. They are preparing for a post-trust economy. The silent alarm is not warning of a broken stock market or a housing crash. It is warning that the concept of a stable, universally accepted global reserve currency, which has underpinned world trade for decades, is fading. Central banks are buying gold because they have concluded that when the next major crisis hits, they can no longer rely on the promise of US debt or the dominance of the US dollar to stabilize their economies. Gold is the admission ticket to a geopolitical and financial life raft. It is the emergency eject button for the world's most risk-averse institutions, and the fact that so many are reaching for it at the same time confirms the terrifying truth. They believe the financial architecture we all depend on is no longer a fortress. It is a massive, over-leveraged liability. The golden silence of the vault is the loudest, most undeniable sound of a fundamental shift in global power and financial trust. We are watching the beginning of the great de-dollarization, and the central banks have already cast their vote in favor of physical, non-digital, non-nationalized gold. The game has changed, and the precious metal is the ultimate ledger of that fear.